This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're working through with this illustrated guide to Shabbos, step by step, by Rabbi Zev Greenwald. Okay, and is excellent. Okay, all right. So the Gemara tells us that the sages would go out to the fields on Friday towards the end of the day, and they would say, Boi Kala, welcome the bride, welcome the bride. And of course, that was later established as our part of our Lecha Dodi, as the culmination of the Lecha Dodi. It's interesting, all of that was added on, that whole Kabbalat Shabbat, which is such a part of our Shabbos. Ever wonder why that is said not by the Amud where the Chazan normally davens? That is said from the Bima. And then when there isn't a choir, which requires a lot of people to stand around, then the Chazan goes and stands by the Amud in the normal place. So the reason for that is that which was added on at a later point in davening. So in order to show that that's not part of the actual integral tefillah davening, so therefore it's led from a different point in the shul. And then that's led from the bima, and then only later do we go to the amud. We in Beth Jacob, because we often have a choir, we can't all crowd around the amud, so we just end up staying there, right? Similar to Musaf. We start Yukum Parkun, and all of that we start by the bima, and only then do we move to the amud for the regular davening. And it really is, it's interesting to note how these different later additions were so important, right? Because when we think about the beautiful Friday night davening, we're not thinking about so much Baruch Hu and the brachos and the Shema, but it's the whole Kabbalat Shabbat. It's literally the acceptance of Shabbos. Yeah, yeah, that builds us up. That builds us up, and that's why we have those seven mizmorim that we say to build ourselves up, and that's why on Chol HaMoed or on Yom Tov, where we're already up there, so we don't have that whole Kabbalat Shabbat. We're already up there, but otherwise, to get us from our weekday up to that level, we have that beautiful Kabbalat Shabbat. Okay, the Gemara also tells that there are those that would, every time they would see something good during the week, they would buy it l'kavod Shabbat, to honor the Shabbat. And they find something better, then they would buy that and utilize that other one for just for the regular weekday, right? But we're always building up towards that Shabbos. When I was a teenager and not yet in the yeshiva world personally, I had wonderful relatives in Mea Sha'arim, right, which is real hardcore Hasidic Judaism in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. The most wonderful, warm, welcoming people that just accepted me wholeheartedly, even though I looked quite different than they did. When I would go there for Friday night, and they'd all be there with their payas and their big yarmulkes, and I'd be there. Actually, I had hair in those days, and quite a lot of it. I always think that this would be a great for a cognitive test for a child. Like, what doesn't belong in this picture? Hey, what's he doing there? What's Ciner doing over there? Right? But something that made a very strong impression on me is that for each course he would say lekavod Shabbos Kodesh, right? To give kavod, to give honor to the holy Shabbos. That's each thing. So we want to prepare the house for Shabbos. We want to prepare ourselves for Shabbos, right? Bathing, showering, getting ready. One of my favorite Erev Shabbos halachas is that the food should be tasted before Shabbos. You have to make sure that it's a go. So I'm very machmir, as we say. I'm very stringent when it comes to that. One of the Shabbos Zmiros that we have It's not one of the most popular, so it's not sung all the time, but is Uluvu alai banai, the idnu ma'adanai, Shabbat hayom lahashem, and means uluvu alai banai. You could borrow alai on me, for me, my children. The idnu ma'adanai, and enjoy my delicacies. Shabbat hayom laHashem. Today is the Shabbat for Hashem, and we are taught that there is a certain amount of parnasa, of income, that is allotted to a person per year, but anything that's spent on Shabbos, that gets drawn from a different account. That does not cause any deficit in your income, right? So that is taken care of, and also for children's Torah study, that is drawn from a different account. And therefore, one should honor the Shabbos in a very, very elegant, proper way. It should be a beautiful day, right? And yes.
So for education for children, that means their day school tuition.
Yeah. And or extra tutors that they might need in order to help them along.
Is that also applied to us learning and spending like in books and stuff like that? I believe it does, right? Because we're like learning Torah and no.
Interesting question. I think the Gemara speaks specifically about children's, right? But that's probably because we typically don't need to pay for our own, right? But I would imagine that would be the case also for others, such, right, for personal books, expenditures that one does for oneself. I would imagine that is the case. Okay, right. There are those who have, look, you're supposed to have, right? Yeah. Right. Shabbos is meant to be enjoyed, right? We say, Ein simcha ela basar v'yayin. The only real simcha, the only real happiness is basar, meat, and yayin, and wine. Okay, but a person is not, a person is vegan or just doesn't enjoy meat, right? And there are those that say you should have fish at every meal. Okay, that's great. If you enjoy fish, if you enjoy meat, but the ikar, the main point is that you should enjoy. That Shabbos should be a special day for you, right? And it could be that a person is exhausted at the end of the week. So the way that they will enjoy that Shabbos meal the most is that they have a relatively simple meal, right? And that's not detracting from their Shabbos enjoyment. That is adding, right? So, it's important to keep in mind what is the focus? What is it that we're actually looking to accomplish, right?
What happens if someone cannot eat grain, like bread, challah, for instance?
Okay, right? So one can't eat challah. If one can't eat challah, let's say one is gluten-free, okay? So there is challah that could be made from some other grains, right? Oats and spelt, right? Those do not have, it's only wheat and barley. I don't know.
It's almost like matzah, right? It doesn't have all those ingredients on the end.
Yeah, well, are we talking about other ingredients? So then there are lots of things. There are lots of different challahs that can be made. If a person can't have the wheat, right? So then a person would have, could have other lechem, right? Ideally, we want at least the first two of the three Shabbat meals to be with bread. Okay, bread is what establishes the meal. The person is allergic to bread, a person that gets sick from bread, then that's not what they are meant to be doing. Yeah. Okay. Right. we're supposed to have the idea of 3 meals on, well, first of all, the lechem mishnah, the double loaves that we have at each of the meals that we're at least having bread, right? Why do we have the double loaves?
The man.
The man, but the man was on Friday double. So we should, if it's representing the man, we should have the 2 loaves on Friday. Why do we have the 2 loaves on Shabbos? Okay, but let's work with the man first.
For the 2 days.
I'm sorry?
No,
No, you said it.
it was sufficient for 2 days. Literally,
Okay, so there's only 1 left when it comes to Shabbos. So why do we have 2?
So why do you have to be the 2 at once?
So why do we have to have the 2? What would you say, Gabriella?
I'm just the double portion, but
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is, granted, the double portion was given on Friday, right? And by Shabbos, there's only 1 portion left, but we have the 2 loaves of bread on Shabbos because for many people, it's a bit of a challenge. The challenge is, I'm not going to work today, right? I could have put in a good 8 hours of work, 10 hours of work. I could have earned my parnasa. I could have earned some good livelihood, and I'm giving that up. And we have to recognize that we're not giving up a thing. We're not giving up a thing by not working, not doing malacha, not earning on Shabbos. Right? Just like there, Hashem provided the double portion on Friday, and there was no need to go out to collect on Shabbos. So too, Hashem is the one who provides the parnasa, and He provides for Shabbos. On the contrary, the Chavetz Chaim writes that if we have non-kosher money, either through illicit means, or through Shabbos work, or through dishonesty, not only do we not see a bracha, do we not see any blessing from that money, but once that goes into our account, then it dispels the shemira, the heavenly guarding that Hashem provides over all that we have. So actually, the money that's earned on Shabbos ends up endangering. Forget about that. I need that money. That money you're not going to see blessing from, and it will endanger the other money that you have. So the double loaves on Shabbos reminds us that without having any effort on Shabbos, Hashem provides for us, and we don't lose, we only gain by the shmira of Shabbos, right? Many women will bake their challahs on Shabbos. Now, what is actually incorrect? Oh boy. What is incorrect about calling our Shabbos bread challah?
The challah is the piece of dough that you remove from the dough.
Mm-hmm.
You burn that.
Good. The challah is what is removed from the dough as we're baking, and that is burned. Why are we burning that?
Basically, because we don't have a kohen anymore.
Okay, good. That's supposed to be given to the kohen, right? But we have a kohen. We have kohanim here in the shul. Huh? Okay. So first of all, how do we know? Meaning, in order, right? We assume he's a kohen. He says he's a kohen, right? We'll give him that first aliyah. But the truth is that when the Mashiach comes and we have the real truma food that can only be eaten by a kohen and cannot be eaten by a zar, a non-kohen, and a non-kohen who eats that, there is a heavenly death penalty on that person. So we'll need a Leo and Avi. Either the person has their lineage papers showing that they are going all the way back, or we'll need Elijah the prophet to say, yes, this person is Kohen. So A, we don't know who truly is a Kohen, and B, everyone is in a state of impurity now, right? Hey, so go to the mikvah. What's the problem? Why is that not sufficient? Good. If a person is tamei mate, if a person has touched, come in contact, or been under the same roof, ceiling, etc., with a body that has died, right? So then it's only through the para aduma, the red heifer process, that the person can become purified. So therefore, this is designated for the Kohen, but we don't want anyone to mistakenly eat it, even a Kohen, and certainly a non-Kohen. We don't want anyone to mistakenly eat it, and therefore we destroy it, we burn it to make sure that no one, right? So then why are we calling this challah? It's actually the anti-challah. It's the non-challah. It's the everything but the challah that we eat. Yeah.
Tzitzis is the name of just the fringes, but the whole garment is called tzitzis.
Good. Nice parallel, Gabriella. Yeah. So the fringes, the actual strings of the tzitzit, we call the whole garment the tzitzit because of the mitzvah. So therefore, we call our Shabbos bread by the mitzvah that goes into that bread, and that is what elevates it. Okay, yeah. Now this separation of challah is when everyone is doing a lot of baking, right? You're baking a lot of cake, also, right? Basically, once one has 5 pounds of flour meaning from any of the 5 grains. Right now, a lot of people use almond flour, things like that. So then no challah is taken from that. But it's dough, meaning from these 5 grains. So then we have to separate the challah. Yes, Gabrielle.
I also understand that if you have like a big purchase or someone gave you, like especially for Purim, Mishloach Manos, like you have all of this bread, you would still take challah from like baked goods if you had a certain amount of baked goods. At least that's something I read, but I don't really understand that.
Assuming challah has been taken, then one would not need to do that. Right? You know, when we buy challah in the store, right, with proper kosher certification, then you know that challah has been taken.
You don't have to go through a process of burning anything.
Correct. It's been done, right? If you're getting it from a person who you know is Torah observant and knowledgeable, then it's been done.
And if the bread or the challah you buy has the right texture, right?
Yes, exactly. So when you buy with the hechsher, there.
It would just be like pasakum, like basically if you.
So pas akum means that it was cooked by non-Jews, right? Even if it's cooked by non-Jews, we still need the challah to be taken
Well,
off.
that's what I'm saying. Like if store bought and it was pas akum or something.
So that's interesting. That's an interesting question, right? When the OU gives their hechsher on entenmann's.
I don't know if it's in this book, but I can.
I'm not sure. That's interesting, right? If I'm buying kosher bread from a non-Jew, so it belonged to a non-Jew, right? Does challah need to be taken off from that?
It's not if the bread has a hatcher on the store, or is it the place where the bread was baked has to be under supervision of a Jew person?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Now there are those who are strict, and even with supervision, it needs to be baked by a Jew. Yeah, right. And that's the pas akum, right? That you brought up, right? So that's an interesting question. I'm not sure, right? If it's being cooked if it's owned and cooked by a non-Jew, right? So is there an obligation of challah? Let me look into that. I don't know. Right? In other words, does the OU take off challah on their, on the Thomas bagels and the, all those different things that they give a hechsher on? Interesting. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Let me see if this will. So here it writes on page 23 here, outside of Israel, one is obligated to separate challah only if it is certain that a piece was not separated. Right? So where there's a suffix, a doubt, in Israel, one needs to separate. Outside of Israel, one does not need to separate. Yeah. And challah is one of the three mitzvot that are special for the women, right? Not say that a man can't do it, but that is a mitzvah that the women typically do. Okay, and we have the famous teaching that when Yitzchak married Rivka and he brought her into the tent, it says Ohel Sarah, right? That tent became like the tent of his mother Sarah, who had already died. And the Medrash says, Rashi brings it, that the three things that were returned, reinstated, was a bracha in the Isa, there was a blessing in the dough, and there was the candles that were burning, and there was a cloud of purity above the tent, right? And those are the three mitzvot that we have, that the women have, which are specific for the women. Again, a man will do it, the woman is unable to do it. And that is halat ner, lighting the candles. That is challah, and that is taharat hamishpacha, the family purity, where the burden of that is on the woman, and that is where there are three very special and beautiful Yehi Ratzons. May it be your will, Hashem, supplications that a woman says when she goes to the mikvah, when she's lighting Shabbos candles, and when she is separating the challah. Okay, right? Yeah, the table should be covered throughout Shabbos until after Havdalah. Okay, yeah, we want to have the table set in advance, that when we come home from Shabbos, who is accompanying us when we come home on Friday night? The Malachim, the angels, the Gemara tells us. I remember Foreman, he gave a beautiful, beautiful piece on that. Wow, when he was here for Shabbos. Yeah. So the Malachim, they accompany us, and that is why when we sing Shalom Aleichem, the first stanza is Malachei Hasharet, because they're arguing, they're ministering angels. Each one, the good angel is hoping, let it be set, let it be set. And the bad angel is saying, oh, let it be dumpy. Right? So at that point, they're still ministering, contesting one another. After that, it's already Malachei Ha Shalom, the Malachim of peace. Because the Gemara says that when they see it set so beautifully, the angel, the Malach Tov, gives his bracha, blessing. So too the next week should be the same. And the other angel, against his will, through gritted teeth, he has to answer Amen to that. Okay? Yeah, so we honor the Shabbos in the way we set the table, right? In the clothing that we wear, even in the way that we speak on Shabbos. How does that manifest itself in a halachic sense in terms of what we speak?
We don't speak like ufdin dechol, like
Okay.
mundane matters.
Okay, so ideally we're not going to be discussing mundane matters, but even more fine-tuned is that, let's say Motzei Shabbos, I'm planning on driving somewhere, I shouldn't say I'm going to drive there after Shabbos. Rather, I should say I'm going to go there after Shabbos. Even though if I'm talking about Los Angeles, right, I'm not walking, right? The only way to get there, right, in practical sense is by driving. But you don't want to say the word driving on Shabbos, right? There is a focus that we have to try to be to try to have this uplifted dibur, right? This uplifted speech, and that's basically we say that on Shabbos, right? Right? We say that the work should be viewed as teaseh, as if it's already been done, right? In our mind, we should have all of those worries, right? All those worries should be put aside. Yeah. Shaving, trimming, haircut, whatever it is, right? We should try to do that for Shabbos, right? Cutting fingernails, right? Actually, there is an order to cutting the fingernails. The idea is that we don't want to cut it in order, okay? We don't want to cut it in order. One of the preparations that's done when a person passes away. So we do what's called the tahara, the purification. One aspect is cutting the nails, and that's cut in orderly fashion. So we jump around 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5. Right. Also, one should not have the nails just around. According to the Gemara, that could be if a pregnant woman steps on it, right? That could be that could cause a miscarriage, right? Yeah, I forget the whole thing. I forget all the cases, but someone once complained to the Brisker Rav, "You're always so machmir. You're always so strict. You're always so stringent." And he said, "Actually, I'm pretty lenient when it comes to certain things." And the person said, "Well, like what?" So I only remember one of them. One of them, he said, "There's an opinion that says that after cutting your nails, you have to burn them. And it should be burned using 2 pieces of wood, which will serve as the 2 witnesses that it was burned. I'm lenient. I say 1 piece of wood." Don't get me wrong, I don't burn them, right? When I do cut my nails, I try to do it over the toilet, and then I give it burial at sea, a royal flush, and that way I have taken care of it. But the whole idea is that we want to be getting ourselves ready for a special day. Yes.
So the order applies to the hands, fingernails, but for toenails, because I recall that there's no
Interesting.
order for the toenails.
I would imagine it's probably the same thing.
I may be mistaken because I think I read somewhere it doesn't matter, but
I would imagine it's the same thing, right? Because if the reason that I gave was correct, then that would apply equally to fingernails and to toenails. Okay, you wouldn't want to sit down to a big meal on Friday because that's going to take away from your Shabbos appetite. At the same time, you don't want to go into Shabbos ravenous either, right? So, we always say there are four portions to Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law. Actually, that name, code of Shulchan Aruch, comes from a Rashi. Well, Rashi quoting a Medrash of this week's parsha. Right? The pasuk says the parsha begins ve'elah mishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. These are the laws that you should place before them. So Rashi brings a number of explanations in you should place before them. One of the explanations he brings is Hashem telling Moshe, Don't think that you'll teach them once, twice, three times, and then that's it. You've got to explain the reasons behind it. You've got to really, really lay it out before them. Keshulchan aruch, like a table that is set. And that is why our code of Jewish law is called the Shulchan Aruch. It's the table that is set before us to let us know how to go ahead. What did I get started on this? What was I about the Shulchan Aruch? Oh, so there are four portions to Shulchan Aruch, right? There is Even HaEzer, which deals with the marriage, man-woman laws. There is Choshen Mishpat, which deals with business laws. There is Orech Chaim, that deals with the day-to-day, right? Be it prayers, brachot, be it tefillin, tzitzit, be it Shabbos, be it holidays, all that. And there's Yoredeya, which deals with many others. It deals with laws of family purity, laws of mezuzah, laws of kashrut, right? It deals with all of that. But then there is what's called the fifth chelek, the fifth part of Shulchan Aruch. And that is using seichel, right? Using common sense. You know what they say about common sense? Not so common. Yeah. Right? Using common sense, right? So you don't want to have a big meal on Friday, right? But you also don't want to go in ravenous. So you need to use your seichel about how will you go into Shabbos with in the best manner. I'm sorry? Correct. As we had this year, our Sarah B'Teves fell out on a Friday, and therefore, right, Tisha B'Av never falls out on a Friday, right? But Sarah B'Teves is the one that does fall out on Friday. I think next year also falls out on a Friday, right? So then, yeah, but Hashem had us in mind over there. Asar B'Teves is the shortest of the fast days. Right? It's in December, December, January. It's the shortest, right? So even with that, we get to, right? It's not like a Tisha B'Av when daylight savings, where the fast ends at 8:30, 8:45, whatever it might be. Okay. Okay. We mentioned before the idea of having the 3 meals on Shabbos, right? We call the third meal, what do we call that? All right, either Su'udah Shlishit or Shalashudis, right? Shalashudis is not a word, right? But it's a lazy way of saying Shalosh Su'udos, right? So Su'udah Shlishit makes a lot of sense. It's the third meal, right? Why is it often referred to as Shalashudis or Shalashidis, depending if you have a Hasidic twist to you or not? Why is it called 3 meals?
What I understand is that to have a portion in Olam Haba, you should have 3 meals.
Okay, yes, but still it should be called Su'udah Shlishit. It's the third meal. Right?
First one's Friday night, Shabbos lunch.
Right. So an explanation that's given why it's referred to as 3 meals is because when you have that meal, you now get reward for each of the 3 meals, not just the third meal. Why? Because comes Friday night, you're hungry. So am I eating lichvod Shabbat? Am I eating to give honor to Shabbos? Or am I eating because it's been a long day, right? And I'm hungry, right? And I wasn't allowed to have a meal, a substantial meal in the afternoon, so I'm hungry, right? And then comes Shabbos morning, and it's 12 o'clock when we finish davening over here. Beautiful singing involving the kids davening. Right? And the rabbi talks way too long, right? So it's noontime by the time we are eating, so we're hungry, Am I eating lichvod Shabbos to give honor to Shabbos, or am I eating because I'm hungry? Comes the third meal, certainly in the winter, when I just finished my second meal, maybe 2 hours before, 3 hours before, and I'm sitting down to another full meal now. So why am I having this meal? I'm not hungry. Why am I having this meal? Because it's a mitzvah to have this meal in order to give honor to Shabbos. So that meal then reflects back on the first two meals, and that's why it's been given that nickname of Shalosh Sudot. Now you've just locked in the credit for all three meals, because now it's clear that you're doing it Lichvod Shabbos. Okay, the real work when it comes to the Hilchos Shabbos and the preparation for Shabbos is the cooking, because that gets very, very intricate as to how do we prepare the food for Shabbos, how do we continue keeping it warm on Shabbos. That then gets very, very intricate, and that is where most of the energy, the study, and the clarification and the energy needs to go in. Just one other point we'll go before we'll leave that for next week, right? Oh, they have Shabbos candles. Well, let's just do Shabbos candles now, and then we'll get into the other cooking. Okay, so right, Shabbos candles again that we said before, that is the mitzvah for the wife, for the woman. But if a man is on his own or living by himself, or the wife's away, then the man lights the Shabbos candles. Right, Shabbos candles again is midrabanan, but that's one of the durabanans, one of the rabbinic institutions that has become almost the emblem of Shabbos. You know, if we're playing Pictionary and it's Shabbos, chances are I'm going to try to draw some Shabbos candles, right? That's what represents Shabbos. It was instituted in order to give this glow, to give this beauty, to give the shalom bayit, the domestic tranquility, to give that warmth of Shabbos. And it's interesting that amongst the Tzedukim, or the Karaites of today, so the Karaites rejected any of the Torah Shebaal Peh, any of the rabbinic understandings of the Torah, and certainly any rabbinic institutions. And the pasuk says, "Lo tevaru eish b'chol moshvotechem." No fire should be burning in your dwelling places. So the Torah Shebaal Peh, the explanation given to Moshe on Mount Sinai, was that we're not allowed to ignite a flame on Shabbos, right? But the Karaites, so they literally sit in the dark the entire Shabbos. It is a cold, dark day. Whereas for us, the mitzvah is, and there are many things that we do in order to show that the error of the tzedukim, right? Shalent is a classic example, right? They will, if there's no fire burning, then they have to eat cold food, right? We're supposed to eat warm food, right? And then it gets halachically not challenging, but there are halachic parameters in order to how do we have that warm food on Shabbos? But that we do. And the candle lighting also is one of the, I'd say one of the three exceptions that at least come to mind now. Typically, whenever we're doing a mitzvah, we make the bracha prior to doing the mitzvah, right? Tefillin, which we'll get to, please go in a few months' time. We have it ready to go. We make the blessing, and then we tighten it and do the wrapping. The talis, it's seated, we hold it, make the bracha, we put it on, right? However, over here, by Hanukkah candles, right, we make the blessing lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah and she'asa nisim, and then we light the candles. Shofar, we make the blessing to blow the shofar, then we blow the shofar. That's the general rule. that we do it prior to the mitzvah, we make the bracha. 3 exceptions. One exception is Shabbos candles, right? And the reason why the woman doesn't first make the bracha and then light the candles is good. By making the bracha, she's accepting Shabbos, in which case she then can't light the candles, right? So in those situations, we want the bracha to be made before the mitzvah is completed. So therefore, the mitzvah is the oneg, the enjoyment that one gets from the beautiful glow of the Shabbos candles. Therefore, the woman will light the candles and then cover her eyes. So she's not getting the enjoyment, the beauty of the candles, makes the blessing, and then she enjoys it. So she's still in the midst of the. If it's not before the mitzvah is done, it's before the mitzvah is completed. Another example, mikvah, good. So there, a woman will actually immerse, come out, not completely out, but come above the water, make a blessing, and then immerse again. Though I think the Sephardic minhag is they just make the bracha and then they go in, right? But for everyone, netilat yadayim, washing our hands. So and that's the same reason as we have by mikvah, that we want to be in a pure state. If this whole mitzvah is a mitzvah of purification, so we want to be in a pure state before we are making that bracha. So we first wash our hands, right? 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, and for negavas in the morning, it's 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Here it's 1, 2, 1, 2. And then our hands are cleansed now, are purified. And then important, we make the blessing before we dry our hands. Make the blessing before we dry our hands, because part of the purification process is washing, but then drying the hands. So when the hands are wet, they're very susceptible to this tumah, this ritual impurity. So therefore, part and parcel of the process of purifying one's hands is washing and then drying. So being that we don't make the blessing before the washing, but we're careful to make the blessing before the drying. Okay, and then in the future we'll continue on with this. Okay, good. We'll call it over here. I apologize. Next Tuesday, I'm at a one-day rabbis conference in Atlanta, so I will not be here Tuesday. That will be the 6th. So that's the 13th. So we will resume on the 20th. Please God. Yasher koach, everybody. Okay. Good night. Good night.